Hey guys, I'm Deucy, and I'm Deucy, and I'm an alcoholic. And for some reason, I'm unusually nervous up here tonight. For some reason, but I am grateful to be here. Thank you for asking me, Nora. It's always a pleasure to come up here and speak and try to carry the message to the best of my ability. We generally start in the meetings. We talk about a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and how things are today. And my sobriety date is April 29th of 2002. And it said it best in Bill's story. I think about that every time when I think about my sobriety date. And he said how dark it was before the dawn. And I can tell you, when I walked into AA on April 29th of 2002, everything in life worthwhile was gone. Man, I was beat, I was broke, and I was ready to die. I didn't have no other options, and I was tired. I was tired, is what I'll say. And I crawled into AA, and I remember a guy that was around here at that time that he's done gone now. I remember him telling me, he said, "Deuce, if you'll hang around here and do these things that AA tell you to do, it'll give you a better life than you never imagined." And I was 30 years old and thinking, "Oh man, I can't drink no more liquor and do no more drugs, and can't run around with that old crowd I used to run around with. Man, how's life ever going to be fun again?" And I can tell you this, nothing they said in AA in the beginning, everything has been true. All the things they told me would happen, it's happened, and it has. It's given me a better life than I can ever imagine. I grew up in Pine Bluff. Grew up in Pine Bluff down there to a middle-class family, had a brother. And you hang around these rooms of AA long enough, most of all our stories are the same. I can tell you at an early age, other than that, there was a little crowd of about 5 or 6 guys that I run around with there in the town as a kid that, I felt comfortable with and hung out with in the neighborhood, and we played football and did all that stuff. And and I played sports growing up, but outside of that, school or just social, it's like most alcoholics. You get up here, I always felt a little different and a little less than. I remember back then in 3rd grade, we took that old CAT test they used to have back then, and I did all right on that thing, and they shipped me from Aberdeen, where I went to school with all my friends and cousins and all that, and put me over in they called it then a gifted and talented class over in Pinehurst over there, and I can tell you I was by far the least gifted and talented of any of them in there, it seemed like everybody I went to school with over there's parents were doctors and lawyers and had big houses and, were doing well. And I just remember always feeling less than, I can remember at an early age, even then, of 3rd, 4th grade and stuff, times of getting off the bus a block or so away from my house because I didn't want anybody to know where I lived. I didn't think my house was as good as everybody else's house in the neighborhood, or wasn't as good as all the people that were around, and we were just like everybody else around there. We pretty much had everything we needed. Probably not everything that I wanted as an alcoholic, as a kid, but we were provided for. But I remember my parents. I can tell you this: I was raised up in the old Pink Elephant, old honky tonk bar down below Pine Bluff down there. If y'all been around here long enough, you remember the old Pink down there. And I can remember as a kid, that's where I spent my weekends, in that old dark honky tonk bar down there on the weekends with my parents. And I can remember, as a kid, waking up on a Saturday morning and a bunch of old guys from this old town spent around before. I remember getting up there and they'd still all be up from the night before, and they're drinking and doing whatever else they were doing and playing cards, still at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I can remember, I don't know when I took my first drink, growing up down there in Pine Bluff. I can remember being a kid, we'd go snatch the old beer out of the refrigerator, and we'd sit out in the woods and pass the beer around. We're probably all anywhere from 6 to 8 years old, and we'd pass the beer around, or somebody'd steal a cigarette from their parents, and we'd sit out there and pass the old cigarette around and cough and hack like we were smoking a joint or something, and just pass a cigarette around. But I can remember being a kid, and I can remember my old man sending me to the refrigerator to get him a beer from the refrigerator, and I can remember popping the top. That was my reward for going to get it. I'd get to pop the top and take a little guzzle of it, that's what he'd do, send me to go get him a beer. But I do remember probably being about 10 years old. I remember a bunch of them old cards were over there playing. They were over there playing cards at the house one night, and I remember going to get my dad a beer out of the refrigerator and taking it and popping the top off and taking a guzzle of it and sitting it down on the table and getting it back from him and taking another guzzle and doing that 2 or 3 times and just aggravating the heck out of him, And I remember him looking at me and saying, he said, boy, one of these days I'm going to take you out and I'm going to let you drink all them beers you can stand to drink till your head hurts so bad you don't want no more of them, And, it took about another 20 years to get to that point, but, that day did come. But, growing up around there, like I said, I mean, we hung around and played around with our kids and stuff there, and I fell a part of there. And, we got in some trouble, at an early age. I mean, just little things, skipping school and stuff like that. But, I can tell you when I took my first drink to get drunk, my parents at one point had run an old shag club down here back years ago in downtown Southern Pines, and they closed that thing down. I remember we had a closet downstairs, and I bet there was a dozen half-gallons of liquor in that thing. Well, I remember I just got to high school when one of the boys I run around with, his parents had went out of town, so we were going to all go out there and have us a party that night, and I remember stealing about 5 or 6 of them half-gallons of liquor, out of the closet there and taking out there that night, and I don't think we knew what we were doing. We just made all kinds of wild concoctions, and man, we got drunk and got sick and puked all over the place, and finally passed out, but I do remember that being fun, I remember having a good time that night, and I remember that's my first time of drinking to get drunk, and I remember what happened that night too. I remember I found a crowd that I fit in with, like I said before, all them times of growing up, other than playing sports and that crowd I run around with, cool, I just never felt like I fit in with the rest of the crowd. But that night, I found about a dozen or so guys and gals that like to, we all like to party, and, it started just like a lot of us, we started drinking on the weekend. Somebody's parents go out of town, or, we just go out in the woods somewhere or go to a party or something. We was going to go find somewhere to drink, and that's how it started in the beginning. It was as simple as that. But, it didn't take long for that drinking to grab a hold of me, and I found something I liked. I liked the way it made me feel, made me feel a part of, made me feel good, loud, not shy, and it started like that, and it didn't take long after I picked up that drink for, all the other little things that come along with that, back in the day in high school, and, we went from drinking on the weekends to, then we started skipping school and drinking, or just, leaving school early or something like that. Of course, then we started smoking some grass and stuff like that, and that kind of stuff. And, it progressed, just like it talks about in the big book of AA. The drinking progressed, the smoking grass and all that stuff progressed. And then it didn't take long once I started that for the consequences of my actions to start. It didn't take long once I started drinking and doing that stuff for me to start getting in trouble around here with the law, And in the beginning, it was the basic stuff, it was drinking underage and simple possessions and stuff that they gave you old pink slip on, or either call you old daddy. My uncle was, or my first cousin, he was a lieutenant on the police department. So for all the pink slips I got, I probably saved 5 more for every one that I got that he got me out of. But and that was the kind of stuff that just kind of picked up from there, and. But it didn't take long for that stuff to grab a hold of me, and once that did, growing up, I always played football and baseball around here, and in high school, I played football and baseball my first year before I got to drinking and doing all that other stuff. And it didn't take long, though, once I found that stuff out and I found that crowd that I run around with. I wasn't interested in going out there on that football field in 100-degree heat. I was more interested in drinking liquor and chasing girls and, doing all that stuff, and so I quit playing sports and, and just started getting in some trouble. And I was 15, 16 years old, and, back then I think I knew a hell of a lot more than I knew now. They couldn't tell me nothing. My parents, they didn't know nothing, and they were trying to set me on the right path, and, what they were telling me didn't make sense, and, I didn't listen and started getting in trouble. And I remember, I guess I was probably just turned 16 years old or so, and I'd already gotten in a little bit of trouble and was drinking and doing all that other stuff. And I remember we went down to the Rock, went down to the race for a weekend. You know, I just kind of disappeared and took off for about 3-4 days and pulled old Western. And I remember coming back in on that Sunday night, and my old man jumped on me that night pretty good, and he beat me up pretty good. And that's the first time he'd ever done that to me. And you know, they went and they tried to have me committed into the psychiatric ward. I remember they got the police and they come got me and took me up to the hospital up there, and I sit in there about half the night waiting on a psychiatrist to come in there and give an evaluation, you know, because they just thought I was crazy, you know. And I remember them coming in and whatever they said, and I hadn't threatened to kill nobody or myself and whatever the hour frame was, and he said, well, we can't really do much with them tonight. So I remember we were going home that night, and we got down there to Aberdeen, about where the DMV station is now and stuff, and yeah, I remember old man, he just pulled over on the side of the road, and he said, well, I don't give a damn where you go, but just don't ever come back to my house again. And he put me out on the side of the road right there, and you know, I remember making it back up to Aberdeen up there, and by that time there was 2 other guys I used to run around with. They'd already got booted out of the house, and I went up there and shacked up with them for a week or so, and then me and another guy went and we found this old trailer down there on Pine Bluff Lake Road, and you know, I quit school and went to work, you know, when I was 16 years old, and we had our own trailer, and man, by the time I got home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, man, there was a house load in there and the party was on, you know. And I think we probably stayed in there a year or so, and you know, we got drunk and high every day. Never did scrape up enough money to turn the oil heat on, but we got drunk and high every day, you know. And you know, and that just kind of started the journey. From there, you know, through my mid-20s, I mean, I kind of did like the big book talks about. You know, I mean, I'd go along there and I'd get in a relationship, get an old girlfriend or something, and I'd settle on down a little bit. You know, I didn't quit drinking or doing nothing, but I was at least a little more calmer when I was in a relationship, you know, when I wasn't, and all kinds of bad things were happening. But, you know, and I'd settle down for a little bit and go along, and you know, and then the trouble would just come in waves, you know, it seemed like the DWIs, and, you know, I got 3 DWIs, 2 of them before I was ever old enough to drink, and, you know, the progression of the trouble, you know, it went from, like I was saying earlier, to them things they gave you old pink slips for and sent you on home, and you could pay a fine to, you know, drinking and driving and trying to outrun the law, or assault on police officers, or just assaults in general, assaults with deadly weapons, and stuff like that, things I was getting locked up for then. They weren't just giving me pink slips, they were putting me in jail for things like that, you know. And, you know, and it kind of went on through, you know. And, you know, I can tell you in them times I had my first experiences with AA, you know. You know, and I went to AA meetings, you know, and I'd sit in them AA meetings, and back then they seemed like they were about 3 hours long and in Spanish, you know. I was like, man, what in the world are they talking about? When's this thing gonna get over? You know, and you know, I wasn't ready to quit drinking then, though. You know, I was just getting started good, you know. And you know, every time I'd get one of them DWIs or something, they'd send me to the court system and send me to the classes. I'd go get the classes and get that stuff signed, and they'd send me to AA, you know. And you know, and I just kind of went through a spell like that through my teens and mid-20s. And, you know, in that time frame, though, with all that going on, I did, you know, I started framing houses. Once, you know, I quit school, and I've always worked in the building industry, even before then. My dad was in the building business, and so I've always been in it. And, you know, I started framing houses and put together framing crews. And, you know, by the time I was 18, 19 years old, and started framing and did well with that. And ended up getting my contractor's license, and at 22, I was 22, just turned 22 when I got my contractor's license and started building, you know, and that stuff kind of took off, you know. And even in the time frame of the things I was doing, I built a business, you know. And you know, I did like any good alcoholic does, you know. I mean, I started making some money and started collecting some things, and of course the more money I made, the progression of the alcoholism and the drug addiction, you know, kicked in. And you know, and I'm a firm believer. You know, my home group for 12 years down there in Wilmington was the treatment center down there. You know, you get a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts and stuff in there. You know, and growing up, I mean, I'm an alcoholic and I'm a drug addict and I'm a gambling addict, and there ain't many 12-step programs out there that I don't qualify for. But I found a home in AA, and you know, that's where I believe in. And But yeah, growing up through there, back then I did pretty much whatever there was out there to do, and through my teens. And then I like to think when I finally grew up in my 20s, I just drank liquor and did cocaine all the time. But and I remember though probably being about 25 years old, man, and I'd just been running hard, and I remember I'd been on about a 2 or 3 day run and hadn't been to bed. And for you guys that have been around here, my mom worked for VR for years around here, and helped a lot of alcoholics and drug addicts. And I remember going and beating on her door about 4 o'clock in the morning one morning after being up for days on end, and going, man, I need some help. I got to do something. I'm tired and I'm going to die if I don't do something. I got to make a change in life, And I remember her. She set me up with a guy then that was over at Recovery Associates, and I really thought I was ready to make a change, And I remember going in there and sitting down with old Ricky. First thing he wanted me to do, he wanted me to go down to a treatment center in Wilmington down there for 30 days, And I was like, man, I got 15, 20 houses I'm building right now. I can't leave for 30 days and leave my business and do all that, And I remember him saying what at that time was, I just thought one of them old smart ass phrases you see on the wall or something. I remember he said, anything you put before your sobriety, you'll lose it. And I remember thinking, yeah, I hear you, dude, whatever, but I ain't got time to leave for 30 days, So, and I remember him suggesting for me to go to some meetings, go back to AA meetings. He also suggested that it's probably not wise to be hanging out in Brooks and all them bars up and down the street down through there, And you probably don't need to be hanging around with them old drug dealers that you run around with, You might want to change your crowd you're hanging around with. And, I remember thinking, man, I'm hurting bad, but I don't want to quit doing all that. I don't want the consequences, but I'm not giving up the lifestyle and the friends and all that kind of stuff, And that's the funny thing about AA, I think about myself included and how many people I watch come in the doors of AA and they come here and say, well, I want some help. Please tell me what to do. And I can tell you from 15, that first meeting I walked in, to when I walked in here and I got sobered up at 30, the message in AA has never wavered. It's come in here and you get you a sponsor, you work these 12 steps, you get you a home group. Once you work them 12 steps, you help another alcoholic, and you go to meetings, and I come in here and ask for help, and they told me what to do, and I said, well, I ain't doing none of that, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get sober, and that started from there down, and I'll be the first to tell you, from 15 to 25, life was a party, man. I drank a lot of liquor and did a lot of dope and got in a lot of trouble, and and that was just kind of par for the course for the crowd that I run around with, and everybody I run around with, they did the same kind of stuff, but that last 5 years is when the dark and dim days started, and I can't tell you in that last 5 years how many mornings I sit there and watch that sun come up with a bottle of liquor and a bag of dope and said, man, today's the day. I got to do something different. I'm going to do something different today. I can't do this no more. I'm going to die if I keep doing this, and man, I'd limp through that day somewhere or another, and finally make it into work at noon or something like that, and starting to feeling a little better, and come 4 or 5 o'clock, they'd either drop the old tailgate on one of the trucks and somebody'd pull out a case of beer, or we say, well, let's stop by the old bar up there and just have a drink, see how everybody's doing, and that's what I do. I stop in there for that one drink that they talk about. I'd go in there and get that one drink, and next thing you know, I'd be sitting there the next morning again going, man, how did this happen again? Man, I can't do this again. I swear I'm going home today, and I'm going to bed. I ain't slept but about 2 hours in 2 days, but I'm going home and going to bed today, and come 4 or 5 o'clock, I'd stop out of that old bar one more time. Let me see what's going on in there. I don't want to miss nothing, and man, it was a roller coaster, and I think about that last 5 years, man, that's when things started going south. I started pushing everybody worthwhile in life out, and I can remember the last 5 years, man, I went out there and I built a big old house out there on 73, man, and I bought boats and motorcycles and sports cars, and man, I bought all the liquor I could stand to drink and all the dope I could stand to do, and it didn't matter. Man, that old black hole in my soul just kept getting darker and darker. It didn't matter what I bought or what I had. The light just kept getting darker and darker, and I sit there and think in the last couple of years of how many Christmases and Thanksgivings that, I just planned to go out and get a couple beers with old boy that just come in town on the day before Christmas or 2 days before Christmas, and Next thing you know, it'd be 3 days after Christmas, and I'd be making it home, or 2 days after Thanksgiving. I never even make it home, knowing the whole family was in town, and Christmas was there, supposed to be there to open up presents with the family, and Thanksgiving and do all that, and never even make it. Never even make it home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. I can't tell you in that time how many Mama's birthdays. I'm supposed to take Mom out to eat dinner for her birthday tonight at 8, but I'm gonna stop by the old bar down here and get one beer before I go out and meet her, before I go home and get ready to go out. And next thing you know, it's the next morning. And when you do that kind of stuff, man, that old guilt and shame gets to eating on you. I can't tell you, and that's what you do. You just keep feeding it. And I was trying to make that guilt and shame go away, man, whatever way I could find. I knew I wasn't living right, but I didn't know any other way at that time. I can remember being out there in that old big house out there, man, and being gone for a couple of days. Ain't nobody heard nothing out of me. And I done cut the old phones off because I got tired of them just, having to hear that telephone ring and then them come out and start knocking on the doors and windows and see them out there peeping in the windows, man. And I just remember being a grown man, 30 years old, and getting in the closet, turning all the lights off and sitting in there with the door closed in the closet going, man, I just hope they go away. I just want them to go away, just because I didn't want them to see what I'd become and the way I was living, in that last couple of years, even my mom and my dad, how mamas are. She sit there and watch the whole thing, but she knew there wasn't nothing she could do. I'm a firm believer there wasn't a soul that walks the face of this earth, not a girlfriend or fiance or a judge or my mama or anybody out there that was going to get me sober until I was ready to get sober, And, she just sit back and she watched it all happen. She watched my life fall apart, and, things just kept dwindling on down, things started disappearing, and it just that things get darker, and the only thing that make it go away was staying drunk and high all the time, And I remember right before I got sober, that old man had a stroke and wound up paralyzed. And I remember him the night before he had a stroke. I remember him just asking something. He wanted to come over and watch a ball game or something at the TV. And we just do what us alcoholics do. We lie. I got somewhere to go. I got some plans. I didn't have no plans. I just didn't want him to come out and bother me with my drinking and what I was going to do. I didn't want him to sit there and watch me. I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do without any interruption, And, I remember he had that stroke, and we put him in the hospital over there. And he'd been in there, I guess, about 2 weeks or so in the actual hospital part of it. And I remember they were moving him down to the rehab part down there. And I remember him calling me up and going, son, can you go by and give me some clothes and sweatpants and T-shirts and all that stuff? I ain't got none of that stuff since they brought me in the hospital. I can remember saying, yeah, I'll go by and get all that stuff for you when I get off work today and have it, so you'll have it tomorrow. And, I remember I had all full intentions of doing that, just like I'd always had before, But I remember getting off that work that day, and I was like, well, I'll just stop on by the old bar and get a drink before I go do all that, And, I remember, for some reason, that just sticks out. I remember sitting over at some dude's house next morning at 10, 11 o'clock, still drinking liquor and doing all the other stuff that we did. And I just remember the guilt and shame of knowing, man, I couldn't even do the little things for my old man, or my family, and it just, that's the kind of stuff. It just kept getting darker and darker. But I remember before I got sober, we had a birthday party over at the hospital for him. My brother come in town. Quite a few people come over with the old birthday party at the over there for him, and. After that night we went on out on the town. I think it was a Saturday night. We went on out on the town like we always did. And at that time I had a fiance I'd been dating for a while, and we went out on the town and did what we always did at the bars around here, running around. And remember going home at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I don't know what happened that night. We got in a big old fight in there, and man, I beat her about damn near to death, and pulled out a shotgun and shot the house all up, and I can remember vaguely going in there and sitting down in a little room in there and taking that shotgun and sticking it under my chin and just sitting there and crying and trying to get the courage up to pull the trigger on that thing. And, all I can tell you is by God's grace, man, I just passed out. I don't know why. I was wired up, but somewhere or another I passed out. And, evidently at some point in the night, she called my mom and my brother, and they come over there in the wee hours of the morning and got the old gun from me. And, I don't remember much about it, but I do remember just being distraught and crying and going, take me to that treatment center they were talking about at that time. Take me to that treatment center. I want to go, but I'm going to go right now. I got to go tonight. And I'm going to drink liquor and I'm going to do dope all the way there to get in. Because if you let me lay down and go to sleep, tomorrow there'll be a reason why I won't go. Just like them other thousands of mornings that I said today was today, I was going to do something different, you know. And that's what I did, man. I got in that car and they took me to Wilmington, that treatment center, and I drank liquor all the way down there, you know. And I remember getting down there and man, they were full and I couldn't get in. You know? But they said, if you'll come back tomorrow, we can get you in. You know, and so I went over to my brother's house. He actually lived down there at that time. I went over there and passed out and woke up a couple hours later and then realized what I'd done. And I got locked up down. I was down in Wilmington with no ride and uncommitted to going to a treatment center. I was trying to figure out how I was going to talk my way out of it. I can tell you that. You know, and, you know, man, I remember going out to a little joint down there that night with my brother's roommate, man, and that's where I had my last beer. You know, I remember ordering a beer and drinking half of that thing and said, man, I'm done. I just don't want no more. I'm tired and I'm just tired, you know. And, you know, I went in that treatment center that next day and, you know, I was terrified. You know, I wouldn't have told you I was scared of anything in this world, but I was terrified, you know. And I walked in that treatment center and, you know, I didn't know what they were talking about, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I just knew something had to change in my life. If I was going to live much longer, something was going to have to change, you know. And, you know, I just went in there, and all I can tell you is, you know, it's just like, I remember an old boy told me down there, old timers, been around for a while. When I got down to Wilmington, been sober about 30 days or so, and I remember saying, man, you know, I was ready to get sober, and I finally heard the message that were saying there. And I remember he looked at me, and he said, that's right, boy. He said, when you drink enough liquor, you'll be able to hear the message. And, you know, how true that was. When I was ready to make a change in my life, I finally heard the same thing that they said at all them AA meetings that I'd been to before, which is get a sponsor, work these 12 steps, go to meetings, and if you get sober, you help another alcoholic, you know. Same stuff they'd always said, but I could never hear it before. And, you know, so I started the process, you know. When I remember being in that treatment center and, you know, they were in there working on these steps, and people were on the 3rd steps and 5th steps and stuff, and me going, man, I remember going to one of them counselors going, man, I don't think this thing's going to work for me. That come to believe in that higher power stuff, I didn't know about none of that God stuff, you know. I mean, I grew up probably going to church a half a dozen times my whole life other than a funeral and a wedding, you know, and I didn't grow up praying. And, you know, I can remember being a kid or teens and 20s and sitting down in the AA meetings down there at the Wilder building and looking through the fog of smoke up there and seeing God on the wall, you know, and going, man, what does God have to do with me not drinking liquor? You know, I ain't in here looking for God. And, you know, my mind would just slap shut, you know. They could have been said, hey, we're going to be giving out $100 bills after the meeting. I didn't hear a word they were saying because I was worried about God getting in there, you know. And, you know, man, I remember I stayed in that treatment center for 28 days, you know, and it did just exactly what it was designed to do. You know, they told me the answer is going to be in AA, NA, whatever you want to go to when you get out of here, but that's where the answer is going to be. But, you know, it gave me a 28-day reprieve. You know, I hadn't been 28 days since the first drink I picked up at 15 years old to when I quit, 28 days without doing something. Now, I spent several times down here running through this town trying some experimental O'Doul's projects, you know, drinking O'Doul's and eating a handful of pills or something like that, you know what I mean? Or, you know, I remember I did a kick there one time for a while. I'd drink them O'Doul's. I'd sit up at the bar and drink O'Doul's, and it went so well for about a week and a half. I thought, well, hell, give me a shot of liquor. So I'd drink an O'Doul's, and I'd take a shot of liquor, and I'd slide that old shot glass back, and I'd just keep on drinking O'Doul's. And they'd come in and give me a old pat on the back. Go, damn, Deucy, you're drinking them O'Doul's. You're doing good. We're proud of you, you know. Man, I'd sit up there and drink a case of O'Doul's and a fifth of liquor every night, you know. And, you know, I remember one night we was up there at Brooks, and I don't know what, they cranked some old Leonard Skinner or something up on the radio and got me all excited. Man, I jumped up through one of them O'Doul's bottles through a big old plate glass window in the front of the bar up there and knocked the sign out and all that. And I remember old Phil, the bartender, he finally called me out there and he said, come on out here, Deuce. And I went out there and there was the old busted glass and there was an O'Doul's bottle laying there. And he said, boy, I know it was you. You're the only fool in here drinking them O'Doul's, you know. But in my mind, that's the crazy thing. At that time, that was my alcoholic thinking. In my mind, I was doing something pretty decent. I was like, well, I'm probably a lot better off than I was if I was drinking a case of beer and a fifth of liquor. But, in my mind, I thought I was doing something good by drinking them O'Doul's, But that was another one of them failed attempts, kind of like it talks about in the big book, some of the other crazy thinking we tried. But, I remember getting out of that treatment center. I got out of that treatment center Memorial Day, 2002. And that old fiance that I'd beat up that bad, she come down there and she picked me up. And I remember she telling me, she said, hey, Pew and all them boys are having a pig picking over here on Memorial Day. I got out on Memorial Day on that Monday. She said, they're having a pig picking over there and they want you to come by. They ain't seen you in a month. And maybe we'll go by there and hang out, but we ain't got to drink nothing. And I remember contemplating that for a 2-hour drive all the way from Wilmington up here going, yeah, maybe I ought to go by there and hang out and see the old boys. That's exactly what I want to do, And I don't know, for some reason, that was God working in my life long before I ever knew it. I actually come over here that Monday night. I come over here to my first AA meeting outside of the treatment instead of going to that pig picking. And, that was something different because even before them times when I was going to try to quit drinking and stuff, I still wanted to go hang out with the crowd, and do all that stuff. But, I come up here that night, and I remember, I think Daniel might have been here, and I remember Brad and Steve were here, and I remember because, I remember being in the treatment center down there, and, there was something going, the patients wasn't doing what I thought they ought to do to be getting sober, and, I remember having to go have a talk with my counselor, and I remember she went back there in the back of the big book back then, whatever page it was, that acceptance passage on 409 or 19 or something, and read that acceptance passage off, and, I done figured I'd gained some level 2 AA knowledge that nobody else in there knew about, you know what I mean? So I remember coming back up here on that Monday night, and I think the meetings broke up. We were downstairs then and went back to a little meeting back there, and I can't remember if Steve or Brad, one was sharing it or something, and they were talking about sponsorship, and it was kind of going around the room, and they finally got to me, and I just whipped out some of that old acceptance passage stuff that I didn't think anybody knew but me out of the big book, It didn't have a damn thing to do with what we were talking about in the meeting, but I just laid it out there and recited the whole passage, and I think it was Steve, and I just remember he gave me a big old smile and said, you just keep on coming back, But, and I can tell you another thing that happened. When I got here, though, and I started going to AA, and there was an old boy around here then that, like I said, is dead and gone now, old Tim S. But, I remember Tim back from when I was in my mid-teens and 20s and running around all them bars, and Tim running around there too. And, I remember the way, I just remember there was a couple old boys here that lived the way I lived, and I hadn't seen them in 4 or 5 years before I got sober, and I didn't know what happened to them. Hell, I thought they were all dead. And come to find out, they were over here in AA, and they just wasn't hanging out in the places I was hanging out, And I remember going to them, and I knew the way they lived and the things they did and the kind of life that they lived in. Man, they had their stuff going on then, and here I am 30 years old, and, I remember Tim going, boy, he was the one that told me, he said, boy, if you'll do this thing, it'll give you a better life than you never imagined, and I remember being 30 years old and being skeptical. Really? Man, life's going to be fun again? This, I just don't know, but I can tell you this, his life was a whole lot better than mine was at that time, and for me, it just was something to see somebody that I knew, it wasn't a counselor with a degree in alcoholism that didn't drink liquor and do the things that I did and tear their family apart. This was somebody that I had seen had changed their life, and I knew the way they lived before they got here, and I'd seen something that changed in them. So that's what gave me some hope, and I think I hung around here a couple of weeks, and I had some stuff I had to finish up, some jobs and stuff like that. And I wound up moving back down to Wilmington, moved in a recovery house down there, and there was a couple of reasons. One, I needed to get away from here, or I thought I needed to get away from here. I'll be honest with you, I was probably running and hiding, and in the last couple of years of business and stuff, I owed some money and did some stuff, and and just was ashamed. I was still ashamed, 30 days sober, getting out of the treatment center, I was still ashamed of the mess and what I'd let my life become, and I kind of run off. I moved down there and moved in a recovery house, but at that time, that's what I needed. I needed somebody to manage my life. I needed somebody, they set down the ground rules and said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to get up in the morning, you're going to go to work, you're going to to have your job. You're going to pay your bills. You're going to go to AA. You're going to get your sponsor. You know, when you come home, you're going to clean up your mess. You're going to clean up your room. You're going to do all the things that responsible people are supposed to do. You know, you ain't 17, 18 years old no more. You don't get to go out and party for days on end and not pay your bills and not take care of your family and do all the stuff that grown-up responsible people are supposed to do. You know, and that was my problem. I was 30 years old and still living like I was 17, you know, and could just go out and somebody else was going to pay the bills and I could just go out and blow all my money doing all that stuff. And, you know, I just wasn't responsible, you know. And but anyway, you know, I got me a sponsor. I got me a sponsor before I got out of that treatment center. You know, I remember getting that sponsor, and that was probably the most important thing I did. And I remember going to him, and my first question to him was, man, what is about this God stuff in here? Man, what is this God of my understanding or higher power y'all talking about? And how am I going to find that? Because I didn't have no faith in nothing when I got here, you know. And you know, I remember him saying, well, we're going to do this nice and simple. He said, what I want you to do is, when you get up in the morning, I want you to get down on your knees and ask God to help you stay sober for today. And he said, if you stay, and then you go do your business. You go to work, you go do whatever, you go to your AA meetings. And he said, if you stay sober all day long, you thank God at the end of the day for keeping you sober. You know, and I remember thinking, man, that sounds pretty stupid, but I'll do it, you know. And, you know, I remember being in that old recovery house over there and locking the doors or getting over in the closet and getting down. But I didn't want nobody to see me down on my knees praying, I can tell you that, you know. And, you know, and I started praying, you know. And, you know, I remember I'd been doing it for 3 or 4 months, you know. And I remember going to that sponsor and going, man, what about all this praying and asking God to help me stay sober? Is this stuff really going to work? And he said, well, how long you been sober now? And I was like, about 4.5 months. And he said, well, you ever been sober 4.5 months before? And I said, well, no. And he said, well, there you have it. Something's working for you, ain't it? And, you know, it's like the light bulb went off. I said, I guess it is working, you know. And, you know, things automatically got a little better in the beginning just because I wasn't drinking. You know, I wasn't getting locked up and I wasn't hungover and, you know, I wasn't blowing all my money. So it automatically got a little better just from that. But, you know, I started working them steps, you know, and, you know, I mean, that same stuff. I remember in early sobriety looking at them steps and thinking, man, what is all that? And how's that going to change me, you know? But, you know, we started working them steps. And we worked on through them steps. And I remember started making some amends and stuff. And I guess I'd been sober about 9 months, 10 months. Was still in that recovery house over there. And I remember laying up there in the bed one night, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and all of a sudden I got this peace and ease that come over me, you know? And I remember laying in that bed, and even almost got a little giggly feeling, laying in the bed there and thinking, man. And I remember thinking, man, it's all going to be all right. If I do this AA stuff and keep doing what they tell me, it's all going to be all right. And I remember that night thinking, man, God's going to get me through this. You know, I can tell you my next thought then was, man, where in the hell did that come from? Because I can tell you this, I'd never in my life thought God was going to get me through anything, you know. And I actually thought that night, man, God's going to get me through this, you know. And, you know, and I worked through them 12 steps, you know, and it did just exactly what the 12 steps said. It had having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, you know. If you go back there and look in the back of the big book, it'll tell you what that spiritual awakening is. This is a personality change. You know, the things for the longest part of my life was drinking liquor and all that other mess and chaos that goes along with it. That was the most important thing in my life for a long time. You know, and somewhere in that process of working that 12 steps, something changed in me. You know, I don't know what day it happened. Can't tell you when, but something changed in my life from working them 12 steps, you know. And, you know, it's the old saying. I remember being in early sobriety and thinking, man, how long do we got to go to these meetings? And they used to say, well, you just go until you want to go. And I remember thinking, well, that ain't never going to happen, you know. But, you know, that did change. That changed to where I enjoy going to meetings. You know, that's who I hang out with today, the fellowship of AA, helping other alcoholics, you know. Very rarely when I get back up here, I still run across a few of them old cats I used to run around with, and they're still out there living the old lifestyle and doing their old stuff, you know, man. And, you know, we don't have a lot. That same crowd that I didn't want to give up all them years before that, I still wanted to go hang out with them even when I didn't want to have the consequences for the drinking. You know, we don't have near as much in common now when you're sitting at a bar stool drinking liquor together all night, you know, and we don't talk about the same things. You know, I'm talking about God working in my life and talking about my children and the blessings of sobriety, you know, and I sit there and think back in the day, man, if I'd have been sitting down there on one of them old bar stools and looked down at that crowd and said, boys, I'm feeling full of self-centered fear today. What do you think? They'd have probably hit me over the head with a beer ball and thrown me out in the parking lot. You know, what the hell are you talking about? but that's what's changed, from working in 12 steps, and I found a gift, just like they told me, that I could never imagine, and I think about how my life changed in the 13 years of sobriety, and crawling into that AA down there and thinking all things worthwhile in life is gone. And, by working in 12 steps and finding that God of my understanding that I didn't ever think was possible, that's the most important thing in my life today, is staying sober and working to maintain that spiritual connection, because without that, it doesn't matter to me how long it's been since I've had a drink, man. If I don't stay connected in these rooms and I don't help other alcoholics, that by coming in here, and other than the night when I'm speaking, but listening in regular meetings, that's like God talking to me through 25 or 30 other people in the night, talking about the same things that are going on in my life that's going on in their lives. I hear it from a bunch of different people, and I come in here and I get it every night or every, 4 or 5 nights a week. I'm not blessed like my little old loving wife that's not out. She goes to church on Sunday and she's just spiritual all week long. She's always thinking of others and how she can help people. And, come Sunday night at 8 o'clock, I need to be going to an AA meeting because my spirituality's done run out, from church that morning, But, so I got to constantly strive to keep that, and that's what gives me the peace and serenity that I got today. The same things that I was trying to buy them years, man, is peace and ease, man, and there is, you can't buy it. I found that out. It doesn't matter what I buy or how much money I got. I can't buy the peace and ease that I have today. And I like to tell you that I don't have it all the time. Today, for some reason, it's just like getting up here to speak tonight. The day has been a trying day, and business-wise, just things going on with business and stuff. It's like I was telling Nori earlier, I sit there and think, man, I don't even deserve to be getting up there and talk tonight about anything spiritual with the day I had, probably my face red all day. But, when I look back, I didn't take a drink, and I didn't do nothing that I had to make amends for. I didn't talk to nobody ugly the way that I have or at times before, but, still, it was just, today was a trying day. But they come and go. They're a lot fewer and far between than they used to be, but what I found in here is, just the greatest gift that I can ever imagine. I remember hearing a guy speak one time, and he said, man, one day you'll realize you get to come to AA. You don't have to come to AA, and that's what I found today. That is the miracle that has happened, is that I found a way to live in here, just like everybody else. That is, I got a church small group that me and my wife go to, and on Monday nights, and we just don't realize how lucky we have it in here. I'm a firm believer, and that's 12 numbered steps for dummies to find God right there. I couldn't find it trying to read that Bible and interpret that Bible and figure out how to live a good spiritual life. And they break it down so easy right there in that 12 steps. I sit in that small group on Monday nights with about 4 or 5 other married couples. And then you got them that's been in the church their whole life and been overseas to the Middle East and to the birthplace of Jesus and all that stuff. And I remember sitting in there one night and they were like, well, man, how do we really try to find God and incorporate that in our life and do all that? I was like, well, we do it through prayer and meditation. And they all looked at me like, ooh, man, where'd you learn that? Step 11 in AA, and it's so simple for us in here. It's like going to church now, and it's like an AA meeting up there. Man, he's talking about step 3 or step 5. It's just it's broke down so easy for us in here. To find that way and to learn to walk that way. But anyway, I'm a firm believer in AA is the message of hope. And if you're in here and you're new or you got any doubts, and it just takes what it takes. It took every drop of liquor it took for me to come in here and let go long enough to listen to this and take the suggestions that they gave me. But, if you do want a different way of life, man, it's by far the best way that I found to live, And what it all boils down to is you can ask anybody that's been here sober for a while, life went better not drinking, we'd be drinking, or it'd be dead one, but, I'd be drinking, So, I come in here because I want to, because I found a better way of life than I never imagined. And, it's always a pleasure to get to come up here and just try to say something that'll help somebody, just like I was. I can remember sitting back there early in sobriety and, speakers getting up there and talking, and they gave me some hope. They said, if you keep on doing this deal, you can have a better life than you never imagined. So anyway, I appreciate you guys letting me share for you tonight.